Hi everyone, I'm Kadijah Robinson. Thank you for joining me. Today I'll be reading Orlando Jack by Danijah Christopher Taylor, aka Danijah of Studio Dan. Okay, so let's begin. Chapter 1. One more story, please, Grandpa. Yes, Grandpa, please tell us one more story. This will be the last one before bedtime. Please, the two Jamaican owlets begged. Okay, okay, I will, replied a smiling Grandpa Who. Only because you two are my favorite grandchildren and we have a few hours before sunrise. Imagine this will be the third story I am telling you two for the night, and you are both still not satisfied. You two really need a lesson in self-control. With that, you just sparked my memory of my good friend Orlando Jack. Who, Grandpa? Asked Bright Eyes. Yes, Grandpa, who is Orlando Jack? Asked Little Beak. You will just have to listen, my dear children, to find out. Orlando was a young boy whom I became friends with in my early years. He was going through a rough period in his young stage of life, and I gave him a wing and helped him through, explained Grandpa. This is Grandpa Who and the grandkids. At the time, Orlando was age 11. He lived with his mother Betty Jack and younger brother Andre Jack, who was 7 years old. His father was in Canada on the government-piloted farm work program. Orlando and his family lived in the small community of Mountainside, St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. Mountainside was a small farming community located just outside of Santa Cruz that depended on rain and water collection for farming. Over the years, the community had mastered water collection and its water was harvested and stored in a large tank located at the back of the community. Life in Mountainside was quite easy as the community was unified and the joy was plentiful. Orlando was a spoiled young man whose mother allowed him to do any manner of evil and he never received a scolding. He was simply a favored child. Mrs. Jack owned a pastry shop in the community. The shop sold homemade bread, cupcakes, cakes, and ice cream, all made by Mrs. Jack. However, the showstopper was her sweet potato pudding, which gave her the nickname Sweet Betty. Betty's sweet potato pudding literally sold faster than hot bread, and it was Orlando's favorite. He loved it so much that he ate 3 2-pound puddings daily. Orlando's eating habits made him extremely overweight, and he weighed 210 pounds at the time. Mind you, he was only 4 feet and 7 inches. He ate non-stop throughout the days, daily. Really, Grandpa? Always eating? Asked Little Beak. Yes, dear, he ate around the clock, answered Grandpa Who. Ha ha! Laughed both owlets. Now back to the story, Grandpa Who said. Unlike his size, Orlando's self-esteem was extremely small, and this made him possess a rotten attitude. He was a bully, and by not wanting to be called names and laughed at, he made all his peers fear him, including his brother and all the children of the community. Orlando was a big fat bully who intimidated everyone for everything he wanted, even for food. Even for food, Grandpa? Asked Bright Eyes. Yes, Bright Eyes, even for food, and that was what he was known for, bullying his peers for food, replied Grandpa. One morning at about 6 a.m., Mommy, Mommy, I'm hungry, Orlando shouted from his room. Yes, Orlando, your breakfast on the dining table, answered Betty. Now, Orlando had a very hard time getting down the stairs in his uniform because of his weight and how tight his uniform was. He had gained a lot of weight and was now moving into his third set of uniform for the school year. Betty told him that she was not buying another set for the year. His uniform shirt was so tight he could hardly button it, and whenever he did, it left holes going down the middle of his shirt. His pants were so tight that it prevented him from making quick or sudden moves. This is Orlando in his uniform, trying to get down the stairs. You can see the holes. Sitting down in his uniform was the hardest task for him, as it always appeared that his legs were ready to rip through the seams of his pants. He slowly made his way down the steps of his home carefully, assessing every step to prevent any potential damage to his tight uniform. At the table, he quickly devoured his meal, which included 12 fried dumplings and 7 pieces of fried chicken, his favorite meal. Andre, his brother, was up doing a few chores before he settled down to eat his breakfast. Upon reaching the dining room, Andre found Orlando had already helped himself to his breakfast and was now finishing his cup of chocolate tea. Andre quickly left the room, got his knapsack, and was off to school. Andre was terrified of Orlando and would never report him to Betty because he feared the beating he would get from Orlando if he ever did. Orlando finished eating, made a loud burp, then grabbed a pan of freshly made potato pudding and was off to school. Chapter 2. Walking to school for Orlando took roughly 2 hours, and he was very popular in the community because of his weight. In fact, he was like the brand ambassador for his mother's pastry shop. He always had something that she baked in his hand, eating away. In the mornings on his way to school, members of the community would always stop him and ask him how the pudding tasted, and he would always reply, "It's better than yesterday." This caused his mother's pastry shop to grow very popular. Orlando took his own little time eating and licking his fingers. He soon reached a path which led to an area called Bird Bush. Bird Bush was a lush green area filled with trees, flowers, and birds of all different kinds and sizes. "Sounds like paradise," said Little Beak. This area was a shortcut into the schoolyard, and instead of walking up the hill to reach the front gate, Orlando would walk a few meters into the bushes and enter the school through a crack in the fence. Bird Bush also provided an opportunity for Orlando to sit and enjoy his mother's baking. He would often sit, eat, and just smile as he took bites after bites until the sweet potato pudding was finished. That moment, Orlando was sitting under a tree next to me and I hooted. This was the normal routine for me at the time. Orlando would often throw a piece of pudding at me and I would catch it with my beak. That always allowed me to share the moment. "How was the pudding, Grandpa?" asked Bright Eyes. "I'm still waiting to taste a slice of pudding as good, dear," chuckled Grandpa Who. They all burst into laughter and Grandpa Who then continued the story. When he was finished eating, he would leave the pudding pan and all the birds would fly and eat the remainder of pudding. The birds enjoyed it, and for that we looked forward every school morning for the boy with the pudding pan. You see, Orlando and I never developed a friendship at that time. I never exposed him to the true powers of the Jamaican plateau yet, said Grandpa Who. "When did you become friends, Grandpa?" asked Bright Eyes. "I'm getting there," Grandpa Who replied, laughing. Orlando then made his way to the crack in the fence that he used to enter onto the school compound. The large crack was caused by the root of a breadfruit tree that grew alongside the fence. He slowly tried to force himself through the crack, but this was always a great struggle, going into an even harder task. The tightness of his uniform limited his movements. Orlando eventually made it onto the school premises, but the task of going through the fence slightly ripped his pants. He made his way across the playing field, and to his surprise, nobody was in sight in the schoolyard. "We must be late. Nobody outside," he said to himself. Upon reaching the schoolyard, Orlando looked at the clock and saw that he was indeed 15 minutes late. Orlando quickened his steps, only causing the rip in his pants to expand. By being 15 minutes tardy, looking back, the lonely halls made the walk seem longer than usual. He finally reached his classroom and his heart stopped because he was late and had no excuse to give. He composed himself for a few seconds, only to hear a loud uproar of laughter coming from the classroom. Orlando was relieved. Laughter meant only one thing. Mrs. Rodney was in a very good mood. Mrs. Rodney was Orlando's grade teacher. She was a tall, slim-figured lady in her late 30s, a strict disciplinarian who ironically loved telling jokes. Just like you, Grandpa, stated Bright Eyes. Grandpa Who continued. The students enjoyed her classes and showed appreciation for participating and being well behaved. She and showed appreciation by participating and being well behaved. She was the only teacher to get his attention on anything other than food. Good morning. Orlando slowly opened the door in a low tone. The laughter in the class immediately became a moment of silence. He stepped into the classroom looking very untidy and sweaty, with his mouth and hands covered in pudding crumbs. Good morning, Orlando Jack. Why are you so late? Mrs. Rodney broke the silence by asking. I'm sorry, Mrs. Rodney. I was helping my mother in the kitchen, he responded. I'm sure you were pleased to do so. Go and have a seat. We have a new student and he was just introducing himself, replied Mrs. Rodney. Orlando noticed that an unfamiliar boy was standing at the front of the class, smiling. He took his seat, which was a custom-built chair made by his father. Orlando could not sit in any of the chairs provided, simply because he was unable to fit, or the chair could not manage the pressure of his weight. Orlando sat beside his best friend Tamara Clark. Tamara was Orlando's only friend at school. She was an average Jane who was not bad looking but was very talkative. She was the only one brave enough to entertain a conversation with Orlando. She enjoyed talking about her love for cooking, which certainly captured Orlando's attention. He truly enjoyed listening, and that made him break down his huge wall of protection, allowing them to become the best of friends. The new student then began his introduction. Hello everyone, my name is William Smart. My friends and family call me Billy. I am from Portmore. I really enjoy playing cricket and I was the best bowler at my old school in Portmore. My favorite subjects are math and science. Billy was a tall and handsome boy of fair complexion and a great physique. He spoke very well and had a pleasant smile. That moment, Billy became the center of attention. Orlando became very jealous in the middle of Billy's introduction. He shouted, "You come a country with your fast chat. That not frighten me. I can't wait to lick you for 6. Fatta, you can play cricket?" Billy replied with a laugh. The air now became tense and no one dared laugh in Orlando's face. He grew red hot as if he was ready to blow steam. Mrs. Rodney was quick to act. She handled the situation very well. She immediately sent Billy to his seat and warned them both, instructing them that this was where the argument ends. Everyone in the class knew this was not the end of the argument. "Please calm down now, Orlando," said Tamara. Orlando was steaming with anger and his face lined with sweat. "Him a just Jeffrey Brown cousin from town. Him think him all that, but me think him a just one show off." Orlando's mood changed immediately. "Jeffrey cousin?" asked Orlando. He continued, "Me a go deal with him this lunchtime," Orlando stated with a chuckle. Jeffrey Brown was 1/3 of a group of boys that provided a 3-course lunch for Orlando. He was extremely terrified of Orlando, and giving Orlando food was just his way of calming the lion. Tamara reminded him of what Mrs. Rodney had said. "No worry yourself. Me will do it fast. She not hear a thing," replied Orlando. Chapter 3. The class soon settled. The sessions flew by very quickly. The school bell rang for the second time for the day, and it was now lunchtime. The canteen was buzzing with an uproar. The smell of food filled the air. This was Orlando's favorite time of the day. The incident between him and Billy was still fresh in his mind, and he sat in his personal table waiting for his daily meals. The first to bring an offering was Nico Henry. He brought Orlando and a small box. He brought Orlando a small boxed lunch and a ripe banana. He quickly sent him away without a word. Jeffrey Scott then came with a bowl of cornmeal porridge. He gulped it down and sent him away, the same as he did Nico. Soon it was 15 minutes into lunchtime, and still Jeffrey had not shown up with his meal. Orlando decided to take a walk in the canteen. Everyone was now finished or almost finished having their lunch. The sounds of chewing and spoons hitting plates were replaced with loud continuous chatter. Orlando spotted Jeffrey. He was sitting beside Billy and Mary Lee Chin, and he slowly made his way over to them with his face looking as intimidating as possible. Billy froze. Billy noticed Jeffrey's sudden mood change and asked what was the matter. The trembling Jeffrey pointed ahead and mumbled, "Orlando Jack a come." "Jeffrey, where my lunch day?" Orlando shouted. "You really want more food? You're not afraid you got bus?" Billy answered. The canteen suddenly became silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone was now focused on Orlando and Billy. "You know me fine say you chat too much. You come a country and it's like Jeffrey never tell you about the story at Orlando Jack," Orlando stated. "But him to tell me," answered Billy. "As far as me can see, he is a big fat loser. Just give him the sandwich, make him eat it, Jeffrey," ordered Billy. Jeffrey then placed the sandwich on the table. Orlando laughed and said, "You see for the trouble? You have to go give me 2 lunch tomorrow." Orlando licked his lips and took up the sandwich and took a huge bite. Before he could swallow, his face started to turn red. Tears filled his eyes as he jumped like a bullfrog with salt on its back, yelling, "Pepper! Pepper! Pepper!" Billy was aware of Jeffrey giving Orlando daily meals and decided to put a stop to it once and for all. Billy had cut 6 whole peppers in between the sandwich and Orlando's mouth was now burning. The canteen erupted in laughter and Orlando scampered towards the direction of the restroom. Mary Lee Chin shouted while laughing, "Finally somebody teach that fat bully a lesson." The laughter got even louder as Billy received praises from his peers. He was the first person to ever stand up to Orlando Jack. Orlando ran into the bathroom in tears, his mouth still burning from the heat of the peppers in the sandwich. Tamara was right behind him. She entered the bathroom and gave him a bag juice to help to cool his mouth. "Me tell you leave Billy alone and forget it in Orlando," said Tamara. Orlando quickly grabbed the bag juice and gulped it all, as if his life depended on it. The bag juice surely helped. He began to speak. "No, if me left him alone, me I go lose my ratings," he yelled. "Orlando, people don't rate you, them only fear you, and fear and respect," Tamara said. Meanwhile, in the canteen, Billy began to recite tales of playing league cricket and receiving the Best Bowler Award 3 years in a row. Eventually, the students became bored of his boasting. It was all about Billy. Mary Chin then said, "Let us play some cricket, and you can show what you can do. Plus all we are go play." The students all agreed. It was a lovely day outside. The sun was overhead and the field was as green as ever. The students separated into 2 teams. Billy was the captain of the bowling team and Scott Lee Perry, the captain of the school's cricket team, was up for batting. The game began and in no time the wickets started to fall. Billy was a fast bowler who was very straight and quick. He was bowling Yorkers at will. In a major solo effort, he soon had Scott Lee Perry's team down to only 2 wickets remaining, with them only making 10 runs. Orlando appeared from the side of the canteen and shouted, "Give me a bat!" Even with the talk that Tamara gave him, he still did not decide to leave Billy alone. Orlando was determined to beat Billy and show the class he was greater. "You are one fat idiot, you know. You don't learn. You still want more fatter?" Billy asked with a laugh. "Billy sure is mean," said Bright Eyes. "Yes, dear, very mean," said Grandpa Who. Grandpa continued, "You see, Orlando was the best batsman in the school, based mostly on the fact that he covered all the wickets with his body, and he was a strong boy. He took up his favorite bat and took his position in front of the wicket. Billy laughed and ran to the start of his run-up. The tightness of Orlando's uniform was making it very difficult for him to properly position himself, and he was looking quite uncomfortable. Nevertheless, he needed to outplay Billy, who appeared to be greater. Billy quickly ran towards Orlando. Orlando's face seemed ready and focused on the six he was about to hit. Billy ran and bowled. Orlando made a powerful swing and missed. Billy's ball was quick and low. The ball hit the wicket. All the power Orlando placed in hitting the ball caused him to slide, and the crotch of his pants burst open. He spun around a few times and fell to the ground, landing on his face with a loud thump. Billy was now laughing his heart out. In fact, all the students started to laugh. It was a loud uproar of laughter on the playing field. Orlando was flat on his face, pants ripped open, not to mention he was out-bowled with just one ball. You know, Fata, me just understand the story of Orlando Jack, and it goes something like this. Him got big, him spins like a gig, him pants can't get slack, that's the story of Big Billy Jack. The laughter now became greater and Billy started to sing the jeer while the other students joined in. Him got big, him spin like a gig, him pants can't get slack, that's the story of Big Billy Jack. Here's an illustration of Orlando Jack after batting. Orlando was so embarrassed that he began to cry. He got up and ran towards the crack he entered the schoolyard through. He ran away in tears with everyone behind him laughing and singing the jeer, the story of Orlando Jack. Chapter 4. He went through the crack of the school compound and into the bird bushes. He sat at his favorite spot and normally all the birds in the area would gather around him. However, the crying was so loud that it scared the birds away. I was getting my day's rest at the time when I was awakened by the loud cry. It was now impossible to go back to sleep with the disturbance of the loud cry. I flew down to my perching branch, and to my surprise, it was the boy with the pudding pan. He was on the ground crying, pants all torn. I hooted to see if I could get his attention, but he just picked up a stone and threw it right at me. "That's what he did?" asked Little Beak. "Humans can be so rude at times," Grandpa laughed. However, over the years of seeing him and with him constantly throwing the pudding crumbs at me, I was quick enough to dodge the stone and flew away. Orlando's cry was getting louder by the minute, and it appeared that he was never going to stop. I flew to my friend's nest. She was a robin called Sweet Voice. She was a bird with a spellbinding voice, and whenever she sang, she was able to put anyone to sleep. I told her the situation with Orlando, and she stated she was more than willing to help me. We returned to my spot in the bushes, and she began to sing. The sound of her voice made Orlando very sleepy, and he soon fell into deep slumber. Birdbush was now at peace, and I was able to get my day's rest. The day went by, and Orlando slept all afternoon until dusk. Orlando was awakened by a flock of young birds pecking at his face. He jumped out of his sleep only to realize that what had happened earlier was not a dream, but his sad reality. I looked at him, the boy that fed me and all the birds in the area that sweet-tasting pudding. He was a mess, covered in dust and his pants torn. My tiny heart ached, and at that moment I decided to reveal the powers of the Jamaican Patu to him. I flew a bit closer and said, "Hello." He was in shock that his tears immediately dried and his mouth was now wide open. I repeated, "Hello, my name is who?" Still speechless, I flew even closer and asked, "Has all your crying made you lose your voice?" Orlando just shook his head to indicate no. He then stated, "Me not stay hungry so long again." In that moment, I flew right in front of his face and gave him a few pecks on his nose and said, You're not dreaming, boy. This is real life. That's when he finally asked, so how long now you could have talk? As long as I can remember. I was just waiting on you to start a conversation, I replied. I then asked him what his name was. He replied, Orlando. So, Orlando, why were you crying and out of school so early today? I asked him. Orlando told me all that happened and that he was not planning on going home until it was dark so that no one would see his torn pants. I could not help but chuckle. That was when I realized he had a self-esteem problem. I'll put one laugh off of me now, he said with a sad look on his face. I apologized for my laughter and asked him, what was his favorite activity? As I suspected, Orlando answered, me just love food. Me just always hungry. And me all hungry now. Well, I do not have any food to give you. So this can be the start of you learning a lesson, I said. Learn? Learn what lesson? Orlando shouted. The lesson that will teach you how to control your self-threatening appetite, I answered. Me not have no life-threatening appetite, Orlando replied. As a bird, one of the first things we learn is never to overeat. If you dare break that rule, you will end up like Brother Jonko, who is always eating. His appetite causes him to go bald. His neck is getting thinner and he is hardly feeling good as I am. You see, with humans, it's just the same. You are what you eat. I looked him deep in the eyes and said, me know all of that already. Me just can't help it, Orlando answered. Have you ever tried? I asked. No, he shouted. So, without even trying, you have decided that you cannot help yourself. Then, my friend Orlando, you shall be spending a lot more days in the bush crying, I continued. I have a friend, a swallow-tailed hummingbird, who is a very good doctor, who knows a lot about the human body, and will be more than willing to give you the formula for beating your problems. He lives just a few meters away. Let's make the visit right now. Orlando went inside his head for a few seconds. Eventually he said, yes, I could meet this great doctor. He was willing to see this amazing doctor friend of mine that was going to help him turn his life around. My friend's name was Gigi. Dr. Gigi was a very talkative swallow-tailed hummingbird who was always active and a master of fitness. As Orlando and I walked to see Dr. Gigi, he was constantly complaining about being tired and changing his mind, wanting to go home. But I just continued pretending not to hear his complaints. We arrived at Gigi's nest and I shouted, Gigi, the natural doctor. Yes, I, shouted Gigi in reply. Gigi was attending to some hibiscus flowers, but quickly flew over when he heard my voice. Gigi and I were friends for as long as I could remember. We shared many stories together and enjoyed talking them over together. Long time, my brother. Like you forget the eye. How may I help the eye? Asked Gigi. No, Gigi, don't say that. I can never forget you, my friend. I have a problem and I need your advice, I answered and continued. Meet Orlando. He cannot control his appetite. What can we do to fix that? Greetings, brother Orlando. Gigi is the name. Healing is the game. Hello, Dr. Gigi, Orlando replied in amazement. What your age, Orlando? Gigi asked. 11, he replied. Yes, I. Say no more, brother Orlando. Is overweight, Gigi said. Me know that already, I'm not care, Orlando shouted, rocking bird bush. No care? You know being overweight puts you in a greater risk of getting deadly diseases like sugar and blood pressure and can lead to a heart attack, Gigi replied. Really? Orlando calmly said and continued. My uncle died last year because of heart attack and my mother takes some pills for high blood pressure. When Gigi explained to Orlando that being overweight can lead to other illnesses like heart attack, which caused the death of his uncle, his mood completely changed. Gigi and I were now able to speak to Orlando without him interrupting or rebutting. And Orlando, you need to change your attitude too. It was that attitude that led you to be in this situation in the first place, I said and continued. Orlando, respect is not given using force or by instilling fear. It has to be earned. And one way to do that is through acts of unselfishness and not by being a bully. Me really not like be a bully, but from me little, me find out say it make them stop laugh after me belly. And then me start get free food, Orlando said. All them behavior they will have to stop now, brother, Gigi said. Gigi gave Orlando a strict diet to follow and told him that he was to take a morning jog every morning from his home to the end of the community, at the water tank and back to his home. He made it clear that a change was going to come in his whole lifestyle, from the way he treated others to his body. Orlando started to make his way home. It was dark, and the road was very lonely, just as how he wanted it. Everyone was already inside. His movements became quicker because of the huge rip in his pants. He was able to get home a bit faster than usual. Upon reaching his home, he was met by his mother and brother, worrying about where he was. Orlando was greeted with hugs and kisses from Betty. What happened to you, my baby? Make you look so and take so long to come home from school? Betty asked. He explained what had happened that day at school, and that it was mostly caused by his bad attitude. He told his mother what he had learned about obesity and the linkage it had to heart attacks, the same thing that killed Uncle Rick. He further stated that the only way to fight obesity and help prevent illnesses such as diabetes and high blood pressure was if he was willing to change his lifestyle. Change your lifestyle? What do you mean by that? Betty asked. Yes, mommy. It mean me have to eat right and exercise, Orlando replied. That me want to see, Andre said laughing. The family then went inside. That night, Orlando went to bed without eating dinner, first in his lifetime. He told his mother he was not hungry, took a bath and went to bed. Orlando, you sure you're not sick? Betty asked in shock. No, just I changed my lifestyle, he said. Chapter 5. The following morning, I flew to Orlando's window. It was closed, and he was fast asleep. So I hooted and used my beak to knock on the glass window that caused him to open his eyes, but he just rolled over and went back to sleep. I tried again, this time calling out his name. Orlando! Orlando! He jumped out of the bed and looked to the window and saw me. He walked over slowly, still with sleep in his eyes, and slid the window open. It's time for your morning workout, Orlando, I said. Good morning, Who, he replied. I'm sorry, I forgot my manners. Good morning. But it's time for your morning walk, I said. Morning walk? We can't go tomorrow, he asked. Haha, I know it wasn't going to be that easy, Little Beak said. Yes, dear, but something magical happened at that moment, replied Grandpa Who. From the room beside Orlando's, Betty shouted, Orlando, why you wake up so early and who you talk to? I quickly flew away as Betty walked into the room. Orlando began to change into his running clothes. Nobody, mommy. Just I get ready for my morning workout. I go walk to the water tank and come back. Remember me, I changed my lifestyle, Orlando answered. Pick me, you sure you're not sick? Betty asked, still in disbelief. No, mommy, me alright. This change of lifestyle will help me not get sick, he replied. The morning walk was very difficult for Orlando, but he showed character and was eventually able to pull through. When he got back home, he was soaking wet. He went and had a shower and got ready for school. Betty prepared a bowl of green plantain porridge. The size of the bowl would normally satisfy his brother Andre's appetite. However, Orlando ate it all and did not complain, nor even asked for more. He was then off to school. While walking to school, the people in the community were in awe. Orlando did not have a pudding pan in his hand. the pan there, Orlando. Better not bake last night, Mr. Leroy shouted. Yes, she bake, but me a change my lifestyle. Me dep on a diet now, Orlando answered. Orlando took the long way up the hill to the school gate. The shortcut through Birdbush was no longer an option. Soon it was class time. The first thing Mrs. Rodney asked was, Orlando, why did you not return to class yesterday after lunch? Orlando told Mrs. Rodney about what had happened to his pants and that he was sorry for not returning. He then apologized to the class for his rotten attitude. He told them what he had learned about obesity and how he was now planning on making a few lifestyle changes starting from today. Me I'll start walk this morning to the water tank and back, he told his classmates. Fatta, all you try nothing can help you. Nothing can work your big gut permanent, Billy said, causing a few in the class to chuckle. But it did nothing to Orlando. He just smiled back. Mr. Smart, you have no manners and respect. I think you also need a lesson. You seem to like the cricket pitch. If you look outside, you can see a few pieces of garbage on the playfield. Get a garbage bag and for your punishment, pick up the garbage on the field and don't come inside until you're finished, Mrs. Rodney ordered Billy with a serious look on her face. Orlando had a large smile on his face as Billy made his way to the door to clean the playfield. Cleaning the playfield took Billy almost the entire morning because of 2 chick-hawks chasing him. The birds caused him to fall several times and he got a pick or 2 from them. The class erupted in laughter as the birds gave him hell. Orlando just smiled knowing it was his feathery friends helping him out. Haha, no, that's funny, Bright Eyes said. Payback served cold, laughed Little Beak. The months went by. It was now the end of the school year and Orlando was now a totally different person. His attitude improved greatly. He had lost a lot of weight and was now an inspiration to the whole community. He was voted by his peers and teachers to be awarded the Student of the Year award at the annual award ceremony at school. On the morning of the award ceremony, Orlando was out jogging. Upon reaching the end of the community, he noticed that the water which was stored away for the community was slowly leaking from its tank. He decided he was going to investigate the situation. He climbed the ladder to the top of the tank, only to discover that it had a hole, which was causing the water to escape rapidly. With all of Orlando's efforts, he could not stop the leak. He placed his thumb in the hole and the water stopped instantly. The water inside of the tank was very cold and soon his fingers started to hurt from the severe cold. This is Orlando now. As you can see, he has lost a lot of weight from jogging and his changing lifestyle. Eventually, it got the best of Orlando and he was now out cold lying down with his thumb still stopping the leak. Oh no, Bright Eyes said. It was now time for the award ceremony at school and Tamara was actively searching for Orlando. Her efforts proved futile as she could not find him. She knew Orlando would never miss this moment for the world. This was his first award ever and it was also the top award. She was a part of the planning committee and she told him he was receiving an award. The ceremony was about to finish. Billy had won the most awards for his sporting performance in the cricket league. He was indeed the man of the moment. He was thinking he was a sure winner of the Student of the Year award. Mrs. Rodney then took the mic to announce the Student of the Year. Tamara made a phone call to Mrs. Jack asking about the whereabouts of Orlando. To her surprise, Betty was crying. Orlando go jogging this morning and he see the tank a leak and him used him finger to stop the leak, Betty continued. The coolness of the water lick him down and Mr. March come find him and we bring him to hospital. The doctor said he might get something called mild hypothermia, but him a go alright. We just want him wake up. Betty said. Tamara ran and told Mrs. Rodney what had happened to Orlando. The news soon started to spread about how Orlando saved the town's water supply, which was very crucial because the town depended on the water. Orlando was a hero. The entire town gathered at the hospital, all wanting to hear news about the state of Orlando. A loud cheer came from inside the hospital when he woke up. Mrs. Rodney and the entire class went to pay him a visit in the hospital and presented him with the award right there. Not only are you Student of the Year, but this act of yours will be remembered for a very long time, Mrs. Rodney said. Everyone was proud and thankful of what Orlando had done. Orlando, in this single act, had finally earned the respect he wanted, and it had nothing to do with food or being a bully. That's the end of the story, Orlando Jack, Grandpa Who said. Thanks, Grandpa, said Bright Eyes and Little Beak. The two owlets soon began to show signs of sleepiness, and the day was now about to break. So Grandpa Who tucked them in the nest, and they all fell asleep together. The end. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Bye!